Today's topic is on human rights. Human rights, the meaning of human rights. Human rights are moral principles or norms that describe certain standards of human behavior and are regularly protected as natural and legal rights in municipal and international laws. Human rights are the basic rights and freedoms that belong to every person in the world from birth to death. We all know the meaning of human rights, which means each and every human being who is in this earth has equal rights to live on this earth, and they have certain standards of behavior. So we are going to see deep on human rights today. These are the basic rights based on shared values like dignity, fairness, equality, respect, and independence. These values are defined and protected by law. So each and every human being on this earth who's living has equal independence, equality, and they have every rights to do their work, to live. So we have some basic human rights. So these are right to equality, freedom from discrimination, right to life, liberty, personal security, freedom for slavery, freedom for torture and degrading treatment. So every human being has their right to their own. The time when they are this practicing anything, they have equal rights, so they can fight for their freedom, for their independence. Each human being has their right to live independently on this earth. No one can stop them from anything. If they are under slavery, they have equal right to go for freedom, and if they are under torture or something, they have some treatment which is against them. United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So there is a United Nations Universal Declaration. United Nations, they declared some human rights which is to be followed in the country. Some of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights are right to equality, marriage and family. That is, every grown-up has the right to marry and have a family if they want to. So these United Nations, they had a thing that every human being has the right to marriage and to have a family on their own. They don't have any system that they should not get married, and also every human being on this earth has the right to get married, the right to your own things, to do their own thing. Every United Nation people has their right to do their own. Freedom of expression. Every human being can express their own feelings like anything. No one can deny them, like you don't want to cry or you don't want to smile, like that. No one has the right to do that. So every United Nations people has the right to express their freedom. The right to public assembly. Everyone has the right to gather at a place and fight for their right. Social security. Everyone can fight for their social security. Workers' right. If people are working in a place, that particular people can fight for their rights. If they are not paid well for their rights and all, they can fight for their rights for work. So we are going to see about the history of human rights. The human rights pinpoint the origin of human rights to the year 539 BC. When the troop of Cyrus the Great conquered the Babylon, declared that all the people had the right to choose their own religion and establish racial equality. So before Christ 539, there was no human rights. There were no such word called human rights. But after, when the troop of Cyrus the Great Babylon declared that every people in their country has the right to choose their own religion, like if they want to choose Christianity, they can choose. If they want to likewise our country, they want to choose Sikhism or Buddhism, anything, they have the own right to choose their own religion. So, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was adopted by the UN General Assembly on 10th December 1948, was the result of experience of the Second World War. Who made human rights? Roosevelt, credited with its inspiration, referred to the declaration as the International Magna Carta of all mankind. Roosevelt called a person was inspired by the human rights and he declared the International Magna Carta. Magna Carta means human rights, the main charter, the great charter which compares all types of human rights. We are going to see about what is Magna Carta. Magna Carta, which means the Great Charter, is one of the most important documents in the history, as it established the principle that everyone is subject to the law, even the king, the guarantees of rights individuals, the right to justice, and the right to a fair trial. Magna Carta imposes a principle that everyone, even for example, in a country, even the president has their own human right. He has to follow the human right principle. Even the least people also have to follow the same rule which is imposed by Magna Carta. Magna Carta and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. These Magna Carta and the Universal Declaration of United Nations, they both combined and followed some main principle which is to be followed when it comes to human rights. On 15 June 1215, 1215, nearly 800 years ago, in a field close to the river Thames at Runnymede, near a bit of land now owned by Burnell University, King John the First of England attached his great soul to a document drawn up by a group of the countries. So these are the examples which composes of Magna Carta. When the Magna Carta started led to a strong tradition of civil liberties, so much so that this country has never considered it necessary to have a formal written constitution. So you people can describe or study these examples when they ask some questions on Magna Carta and what is the relationship, what did Magna Carta and Universal Declaration of the United Nations did together on human rights. So you people can study this for the examples. So it is universally acknowledged as the first promulgation that the subjects of a country had legal rights and that the state itself could be bound by law. Look at how far-sighted it was. It established the rights of widows who own property to choose not to remarry and established principles of due process and equality before the law. It also contained provisions forbidding bribery and official misconduct. It gave us all the rights for all free citizens to own and inherit property and to be protected from excessive taxes. So, yes, Magna Carta and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights both stood together and followed and asked people that these are the rules, these are the rights you can ask for. Some of the examples are bribery. They have the rights to remarry. They have rights to equality, and citizens can own their own property, that is land and all they can own. If they have money, they can buy their own land like that. These are the rights which Magna Carta and the Universal Declaration of United States both followed, like not followed, they provided these rights to the people. It was the first document to set out the right of habeas corpus, the rule that you cannot be detained without lawful cause. Habeas corpus means the rule which we cannot say no without any law reason. Without any correct reason, we cannot deny that rule. That is called habeas corpus, and established a tradition of civil rights in Britain that still exists today. It led in turn to the Bill of Rights in 1689, which codified the civil and political rights of all men. It granted freedom for taxation, freedom to petition, freedom to elect without interference, freedom of speech, freedom from cruel and unusual punishments, and the right to a fair trial. So in the year 1689, there was petition freedom. If a person is having complaint on any of the government officials, they can go and write a petition that this person has been working wrong or he worked against the law. So every citizen has the right to go and complain on particular person. Freedom to elect without interference. It is like some of the countries will be having like only the generations of a particular family can own the country or lead the country. Not like that, anyone can be selected for leading a country. Freedom for cruel and unusual punishments and the right to a fair trial. If a punishment is so cruel which is cannot be accepted by the human peoples, so they can fight against that. National Human Rights Commission. In the past slides we were seeing on United Nations and MAGNA CARTA. Now we are going to see on National Human Rights Commission. In India, what type of human rights is being followed? India's National Human Rights Commission was created in the year 1993 as a response to increasing international awareness of human rights after India entered the global economic arena. So, Indian people followed human rights, only there was so many international awareness programs about human rights. The United Nations Human Rights Commission adopted the Paris Principles, a guiding light for resolving international human rights. So the Indian government followed some of the Human Rights Commission policies from Paris. For India, it was critical to secure international trade partnership, ensure compliance with global labor standards, including a refusal to support unethical practices like child labor. So child labor was the main thing which was practiced in India. So many small children were being sent to work forced to do work because of the poverty faced by the families. So these were the first right things which is to be treated or eradicated from India. So the Indian government took some of the principles from Paris government to treat human rights. While human rights were enshrined in the Indian Constitution, it was the lack of a system to protect and safeguard against exploitation that made it necessary to fighting for children's rights in India. Therefore, the Human Rights Commission in India, armed with the defining intent of protecting human rights, providing a definitive framework to NGOs in India and other initiatives working in the fields of indigenous human rights. The National Human Rights Commission in India derives its power from the Protection of Human Rights Act. Its composition enjoys robust legal fortitude with a panel that features former judges of the Supreme Court, High Court, and people experienced human rights policy and execution. It is presided by the retired Chief Justice of India and chairpersons of National Commissions of Key Human Rights Concerns, Minorities, India's Scheduled Classes and Tribes. So, these National Commission rights was designed by the Chief Justice of India and chairperson altogether framed a human rights rules for the Indian government. Functions of National Human Rights Commission. Today, this shortly called NHRC enjoys a very wide mandate, receiving over 70,000 complaints every year. So, these Human Rights Commission receives about 70,000 complaints for a year alone. After when human rights have started, it is a big thing. Through recommendations and requests for inquiries, the Commission seeks to resolve human rights violations across India. Legal proceedings of National Human Rights Commission. It also can intervene in human rights proceedings which may be pending before the court. This National Human Rights Commission officials visits jail to inspect living conditions of inmates incarcerated for treatment, reformation and protection. Even though the prisoners who are there inside the jail has been visited regularly for treating them, to check them whether they are treated properly or not. Child rights in India. A vital function of National Human Rights Commission, child rights are often considered the most critical of all human rights reforms as they define the future for both current and upcoming Indian generations. Children's rights is main, which is a major thing. Even now it is going. Children are not treated properly as they don't have a big voice as the adults have. Children's rights have radically changed from the Middle Ages, which refused to recognize the concept of childhood and saw children work side by side with adults, to today's understanding of nurturing a child's unique identity, which providing him access necessities. Children's rights apply to the special protection and care that mirrors under the age of 18 who are provided. So we see children who are aged under 18. Based on international legislations, these include right to association with both parents, physical protection, food, free education, healthcare, and legal protection from violence and discrimination. What are the children's rights? Mainly, it concerns on parents. If the parents are torturing or not taking care of the children properly, these children can go and fight for their rights. Physical protection, if they are not properly fed, if they are not given good education at the right time, if they are not treated properly, so these are the rights for the children to fight against. Some of the examples of child rights are right to survival. Every children has the same right how adults have. They should have health, good nutrition, name. Some people don't have people to name them also. Till if you go some of the people, some tribe people and all, they don't have even a good name. So people, they would not even mind to name the child. So these are the rights. Right to development, to educate, care and leisure recreation. Right to protection, right to participation, that is participating in everything. Even education is a participation. Freedom of speech, thought, fear, freedom of choice, and the right to make decisions, ownership over one's body.